What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy, the Rogue Ranger, coming at you with my thoughts on Daredevil Born Again. Now, as a huge Daredevil fan, especially of the Netflix series, I can't describe how much joy I felt when it was announced the character would be returning to the MCU, especially after he was done dirty with the immediate cancellation of his show right after its phenomenal third season. I mean, just his cameo in Spider-Man No Way Home had the whole theater I was in hyped, and I don't know about everyone else, but it was truly special to me seeing Peter Parker and Matt Murdock interact on the big screen, reminding me of how the two characters used to be portrayed as bros in the comics, which was fitting as they were Marvel's most prominent street-level heroes. Now, of course, the Man Without Fear was being folded into the main MCU as a tactical move to help pull it out of the dumpster fire that the MCU was sinking into post-Endgame because of his immense popularity. They couldn't possibly fumble that, right? Then She-Hulk happened, and despite Daredevil being the best part of that show, even wearing a costume that I thought was a nice tribute to his original yellow colors in the comics, I, just like many others, were now rightfully scared shitless of what Daredevil Born Again would look like. And Kingpin's appearance in Hawkeye and Echo certainly didn't help. Now, the trailers did help a little to appease the dread, but the real test was the series itself. And after completing all 9 episodes of the first season, or really half of the first season because it was originally supposed to be 18 episodes that they cut in half, likely because of the creative overhaul and reshoots that I'll get into, but overall it was fun and enjoyable. Was it perfect? Hell no. Did it live up to the original Netflix series? Far from it. Do I have criticisms? Absolutely. Who doesn't? But it was entertaining and engaging without infuriating me, so I'll chalk it up as a win. Does it sound like the show did the bare minimum? Sure, but the standards that the Netflix series set was such a level that just getting its foot in the door was enough for me to enjoy myself. Now, before I get into my review, I would like you beautiful people to hit the subscribe button. It really helps out the channel and allows me to create more content for you guys. Now, on to the video. Now, off rip, when the first 2 episodes dropped, despite being a sequel to the prior series, the disconnect from the original is very apparent, at least from my perspective. This can probably be attributed to the years in between the 2 shows. However, it's also very likely a result of the changes in showrunners and overhaul, making it a patchwork of a show. Thankfully, those changes were made to make it more in line with the original series instead of going for a soft reboot like they originally planned. I'm genuinely thankful of the tone they chose for Born Again. It's not exactly one-to-one with the original, as the city is certainly brighter during the day, and it's more accepting that it's part of the more fantastical MCU. This doesn't hurt the series in any way to me, as I don't believe it needs to be overly dark, gritty, and grounded to be good. Though they may be trying a bit too hard to be edgy with one too many F-bombs. It is definitely refreshing that they kept the more subtle comedy intact instead of using the somewhat forced campy humor the overarching MCU has devolved into. Matt roasting Officer Powell about the black eye he gave him in court is probably the funniest thing all season. Before I get into the characters, shout out to the entire cast, especially Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, for their performances doing their thing. However, sometimes it doesn't matter how great a performance is if the material ain't up to par. Matt is as good as he was prior and still keeps me wanting more as he's going through it, mainly because everything that happened in the first episode. However, pain and grief aren't new to the character. It's just that, Matt having to hold back to do things within the system got him boiling to let the devil out. And when he does, it's just as brutal as I remember. On the other hand, the whole left without Foggy and Karen's presence in the show is heavily felt, as the trio's dynamic was an essential part of the series that the new supporting cast just can't recreate. I was all open arms welcoming of Heather Glenn as Matt's new love interest, but as the show progressed, she gets progressively more and more infuriating. Having opposing views on vigilantism is one thing, but supporting Fisk despite his known criminal history that Matt himself helped expose is crazy. Just because her traumatic experience of Muse trying to kill her, she lumps vigilantes and a serial killer together in the same boat as justification to support Fisk's anti-vigilantism, just because both wear costumes, despite the fact that Daredevil saved her life. Yeah, she shot him, but she wouldn't have been able to do so if Daredevil had come in. Like, is she an idiot? But in retrospect, we already know the answer, as she's supposed to be a therapist, yet can't pick up on any of the cryptic dialogue Fisk and Vanessa use in their sessions. Hell, she was Muse's therapist for months and couldn't pick up on any of the signs of him being a serial killer until the very last session. She keeps this up, she's definitely going to end up like her comic book counterpart. The Punisher's return is well welcomed. Frank's discussion with Matt is easily award worthy. However, his latter appearances are just him being the cavalry backing up Daredevil. But can someone explain to me why the hell he decided to head into that suicidal ambush? And please don't tell me it wasn't just so he could roast the anti-vigilante task force. Hector I liked with his genuine heroism, RIP to his actor Kumar De Los Reyes. Still though, Hector was done dirty. They could have at least let him go out in a blaze of glory. It's a genuine waste that we didn't even get to see his powers in action. But the real waste was Muse. Despite all his hype in the trailer, he's nowhere near as cool and creepy as his comic book counterpart. I knew he wasn't going to be the main villain of the season, but to go out as anticlimactic as that, they could have at least given him his powers to absorb any kind of sensory information that surrounds him, which makes him hard to track and definitely would have made him a greater challenge to Daredevil. Fisk becoming the mayor was actually a bit recent in the comics, which made me a bit worried on how well it would be adapted because of its recency. A worry that was unfortunately proven right when they barely explained how he won at all, which is baffling because if they can give us a good explanation on how Fisk isn't locked up after season 3, surely they can explain his election victory or how Vanessa went from an art dealer to supposedly running his criminal empire better than him. Seriously, they go well into detail on how through blackmail and fear he's able to get the people who oppose him on the city council to side with him, but other important stuff is just hand-waved. The writing is either being lazy or selective. They obviously tried to one-up the car door scene with him crushing the commissioner's head, but I think the former works better because it's an introduction to Fisk's violent side with a slight mood whiplash, while the latter is a show of force we're well familiar with. Fisk and Vanessa being a crime boss power couple is cool and all, but you're telling me she could wait for him in jail, but not after whatever Echo was? And now random-ass innocent civilian Adam had to spend his last days locked up as the Kingpin's punching bag before being unceremoniously executed. Couldn't be me. On a side note, Daniel Blake's glazing of Fisk is getting out of hand. Glazing another man to the point of worship is crazy work. I was hoping Poindexter's character would further evolve into the psychotic maniac Bullseye is in the comics. Instead, he's more of a lackey that's scared to be released into the general populace. Are you serious? The overall plots are alright. How they handled Hector's court case easily puts everything in She-Hulk to shame with its emotional weight and consequences. Episode 5 with the bank robberies is by far the most jarringly bizarre episode of all of Daredevil, and it's not just because it's a bottle episode, which makes it the first to barely build upon and continue a season's narrative. It also has a slightly lighter and more comedic tone that's more in line with the general MCU, such as Kamala's dad not shutting the hell up about her. It's the things like that that leads me to conclude it was probably the most unchanged episode from the previous version of the show. But I will say Matt breaking that guy's leg was mad petty. I'm not fully convinced that this franchise will tease us all to hell, writing any excuse for Matt to not wear his suit, just so that when he finally dons the horns and releases his pent-up frustration, we're feeling it too alongside of the hype. The man has multiple variations now, he definitely won't be letting anyone impersonate him again. The last episode of the season ending with Fisk's victory really confirms to me that we basically got half a season, especially when we know the season was originally planned for around 18 episodes before the overhaul. However, despite my criticisms, I'm still looking forward to the second half, as with the extra time they've been giving it, it should be more consistent in tone, narrative, and plot. Hopefully more heroes, particularly a certain web slinger, show up to help. There's no way they all just ignored that massive blackout and the pandemonium that followed. In the long run, when everything's done with Fisk, maybe they can bring back the Hand and do an adaptation of Shadowland. That could be a good way to really fold the Defenders into the MCU. And with the Hand's thing being resurrection, hopefully we can bring Foggy back to life. But that's just wishful thinking. These have been my thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe. This is the Rogue Ranger, powering down, and have a nice day.